Welcome to River Roast Cafe. I'm Tom. This is our guest Marty, Danny, Nick, and
Hello.
Will.
How's it going?
Hi, everybody.
We're going to start off tonight talking about the situation in Rome with the death of Pope Francis and the conclave coming up, and our opinions and what we think about Pope Francis and what we think about what's in the future for the Catholic Church, which is the biggest religion in the world. It's like there's almost 1 billion Catholics around, and one of the things that they're going to have to think about is where they want to have influence in Francis made like 100 that are going to be voting him, and most of them are people that he put in. They probably see eye to eye with him. But sometimes they go liberal one, conservative with another. So
We still have a live Pope. Benedict's still alive.
oh well.
Former Pope.
Well, he
Once a pope.
Pope
once a
Emeritus.
Pope, it's like, Supreme Court Justice.
Marine,
You can resign as a Pope.
Yeah, he did resign. but
There'd been a couple
in a
historically.
pinch, he can always speak ex cathedra.
Well, can he? I mean, it sounds like anything that I've heard regarding this transition,
I think he's got dementia.
I haven't heard anything of his name mentioned at all. So,
Yeah, I don't think he thinks very well right now. So that's why he moved himself out.
So, getting back to what you were saying, I'm not Catholic, and I really didn't know a whole lot about this Pope. I'm in the Eastern Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox Church, but since he passed away, a couple of people in my office are pretty devout, and they were all very upset by it. They really enjoyed this, but they really liked this Pope, and I'm from the Catholic perspective, why was he so endearing? Why was he so liked?
I think he was a holy man.
Well, yeah.
Actual for real.
Gee.
No, real. I mean,
Okay.
for real holy man. A lot of popes are they're diplomats, they're bureaucrats. They're
Pomp and
uppity.
circumstance, rituals, all that other stuff. He didn't care about any of that.
Yeah, he came across as like a regular guy, and he connected with people that way.
Well, he wanted to live a life of poverty, and that's why he didn't live in the Vatican. That's why he's not buried in the Vatican, because he wanted to be, the Pope of the common people.
Yeah.
And most of the people in the world that the Catholic Church represents live in poverty, and he wanted to be a man of them.
It was my understanding that he, when he was first involved in the church, he was a very conservative, strict follower of the faith. He wasn't.
He was an authoritarian.
As you described him as being a pretty liberal pope. He was very conservative, and then he did some type of missionary work where it kind of changed his whole perspective on.
He had an
his mission.
epiphany. There's a special on ABC on him. Okay, so
Can we trust that?
well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's pretty much corroborated by other people. But he went to confession in some situation and had an epiphany from it, and decided that he should listen instead of make sure everybody did it his way. That he should start listening, because he was the very young head of the Jesuits in Argentina, and he ran them very authoritarianly, and it was during this period that he had this change of heart and turned 180 degrees in the other direction. What interests me, though, is that if you look on Facebook and you see a picture of him or a meme about the Pope, more than 50% of these Catholics, our Catholics, us Catholics, say they hate him. They want him to go to hell. They think he was the worst pope that ever walked the face of the earth, including the Borgia popes. There's a lot of popes out there that you can.
We have the papacy, now let us enjoy it, right?
Yeah, right. So.
Well, what was their complaint about him? He was too liberal?
Well, yeah, way too
Okay.
liberal for him. Okay, they said first of all, this one guy said, "Well, he went against Scripture." So I said to him, "Give me the Scripture that he went against." And crickets, never came back again, right? But this perception, because he allowed people who were divorced to have communion, to be reintroduced into the society, the church society. They weren't excommunicated like they were before if they got remarried. That didn't get too much of a backlash. What did get a backlash is when he welcomed the LGBTQ plus whatever, okay? And so when asked if he thought it was all right for them to get married, he said, "Who am I to judge?" Okay, and
But he doesn't allow gay marriages in the Catholic Church. He blessed them, as I understand it, but he didn't
blessed the individuals.
the individuals,
who
right?
would not. So that's something I've seen that's often confused.
Right.
You're allowed to bless individual gay people, even though they have, a secular marriage through the state. But according to him, the church itself cannot bless the union.
the union itself, the act.
Quote, union, right.
Right.
But yeah,
Which
it's
is
what
consistent
a
with-
liberal would consider a step in the right direction, I suppose.
Well, I'm going to turn this over to our host and resident historian and ask him this question on the religion. Considering marriage, when we go back to the early Franks, and they were Christianized, okay, and they used to have a woman in every town. Now they were relegated to having one woman for the rest of their life. Didn't they institute something known later as the Merovingian divorce?
I don't know.
You never heard of that?
I never-
Well, they found a loophole in the Catholic Church. You can't get absolution for remarrying after you've divorced somebody. However, you can get absolution if you murder your wife and then say, "I am sorry I did so," did the penance, paid the tithing, and then remarries the person you wanted to. So there's precedence for Henry VIII.
That's perfectly logical.
Yeah, well,
Well, I mean, the Orthodox Church has what we call an ecclesiastical divorce, where you have to go before a synod of priests and whatnot, and explain what happened, why it happened, and so you don't want to lose people out of your faith because one party, sometimes in a divorce, does something that causes the marriage to break down, and I think the church, just as a matter of course, needed to address those issues. The Catholic Church has the same thing. You have to go, as I understand it, you have to go get an annulment.
Right.
You have to,
Right.
and the other party has to agree to it and whatnot. So
that became altogether too frequent.
Well,
I'd say what are the grounds you can get an ecclesiastical divorce on would be my question. Is it just anything?
Well, I mean, I don't. There are many reasons how or why you can get an ecclesiastical divorce. The fact of the matter is if you're married in the Orthodox Church and you want to participate in the Orthodox Church, then you have to go through whatever procedures they have to remain in the Orthodox Church. And one of those is having this ecclesiastical divorce. Like I said, and it's really not a money thing. It's more of a they want to hear your story. They want to make sure that you're just not going out there getting married and divorced because
So
So
you got tired of this one and moved on to that
The reason
one.
that I
There's-
ask is because annulment's not necessarily, it's not just a divorce. It's really as the lawyer, I'll tell you, void ab initio.
Right.
That there was something at the start of the marriage where they never took their vow sincerely at the start. They intended to cheat.
So
or
it was
have
a
an affair
fraud.
Through right, it was fraudulent, and so your vow's not binding because theirs was insincere. So if ecclesiastical divorce is broader than that, if it doesn't have to go necessarily to the
Well,
beginning of the marriage,
Isn't that part
not
of
quite
the
the same.
annulment
Not that I'm
process as
aware
well for Catholics?
that is
Well,
the annulment.
that is-
see,
that's what you're
Okay.
annulment means that the marriage wasn't
Never
valid.
wasn't valid to begin with. You
The
married your
problem with
brother's
that is
sister
it
or something.
Can bastardize the children.
Or you didn't have kids. You couldn't have kids.
Well, no, but he's saying, what if
Couldn't you get annulment because you weren't? You
No,
couldn't
no.
have
What I'm
kids?
saying is, if an annulment
Yeah.
makes the children illegitimate.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah, but I didn't know that. But what I
Because
understood,
they were never married.
one of the major reasons to get an
People
annulment
used to
is
think
that
that
the
was
woman
important.
wouldn't the woman wouldn't participate in the wifely things, or she wouldn't give birth to a child. And in some cases, they needed to give birth to a male child. And if it was a royal person, they'd want a male child.
Yeah, we're talking dogma now. I don't want to talk dogma. I want to talk the politics of this thing.
Okay.
All
You
right.
know.
All right, so
Boo.
so what do you think is going to happen? Do you think he stacked the deck with money of these liberal cardinals now to the point where they're going to hire or they're going to appoint or elect a liberal pope?
Well,
Or is the church wanting to go back to its conservative roots, which is a lot of what the Orthodox Church is doing? A lot of the Orthodox Church is moving back towards a more conservative church,
and there's a lot
which
of,
is a conservative church to begin with.
There's
So-
a lot of American Catholics that are conservative. A lot of young American Catholics are very conservative.
Yeah.
But that's Americans. I don't think America doesn't matter like it used to church. Now they're looking at China, looking at India.
I think that
Africa,
Bishop of
18%
Hong
of
Kong
the
has got the
people
leg up on
in
it.
Africa are Catholics.
Well, the Orthodox, again, I can only compare to what I know in this situation. The Orthodox Church has made huge strides in its missions in Africa. There's a lot of Orthodox churches
Yeah.
in Africa. There's a lot of Orthodox churches in Asia. There's a patriarch. There's a hierarch in Korea.
How does that work? Well, no, I'm not gaming.
And they're going head to head with the Muslims. that are they're also
Well, they've been doing that
proselytizing.
for 1,000 years.
You know, and in places like Nigeria, it's a problem. So when I look at it, I mean, I've been reading about some of these guys. There's a couple of Italians. There's a conservative Italian, and there's a liberal Italian that was real close to the Pope. There's a Swedish guy that some people are thinking about that is a good mix.
Closest to-
Is a good mix of conservative
Mhm.
and liberal, and he's in a country it used to be Lutheran.
I was going to say, a Swedish Catholic? There's a
He's
rarity.
the first cardinal ever come from Sweden. I guess they didn't get one in the Middle Ages. And
So,
then
so
then
do you
he
think
went-
they'll go Italian back to back?
well, I don't know. I've been reading the guy I would favor. I don't know. They should have an Irish pope, really,
Yeah.
because
Sooner or later, yeah.
I think I can't think of another nation that has been persecuted because they were
of their
Catholic
religion, yeah.
than the Irish. The
Yeah.
Irish are the only nation I can think of was persecuted because of that. But we never had a pope. And there's Irish priests everywhere. You can comb the hills in the Philippines and you'll find
Yeah, the
Irish priests.
missionaries are the biggest chunk of the Catholic
in
missionaries.
Africa. I had a cousin named Lavery, my mother's cousin. He was a priest and he was in the Philippines. And he was back in the boonies and he was very pragmatic. Sometimes he could only get to a place every 3 or 4 months. And he told people if they wanted to get married, just say we're married. They start living together, they get married. He says when I catch up with you, he says I'll give you
Like
the
you get
yeah.
the humma numma and you're done.
yeah, so that would be good, I think, but it won't happen. So, with the African cardinals are conservatives, and it's because, and I can see why they're conservative, because they're in a new place, a place that's new. They're going to new places, and
Well, the African people are traditionalists by nature. I mean, they're very family oriented. They're tribal. The original Africans were very tribal, very close knit communities, and my understanding is they are very, very conservative. Like I said, the Orthodox Christians out there are pretty
Yeah.
conservative people. You don't tend to find a lot of liberals down there.
yeah, and
in
then
Africa.
they have the Cardinal Manila, who is close, and he can do the Asian thing, and is still liberal. So
What makes a Catholic conservative want to be conservative? I don't understand.
Being Catholic.
Being Catholic. What,
Yeah.
I
Catholics
mean,
on
is it the
average is more
tradition?
conservative
Is
than
it,
most people. Yeah.
is it the hocus pocus, the feeling of warmth when you go in and you hear a mass, high mass in Latin, and you don't understand what the words are, but you feel this?
I'm not quite sure I understand, first of all, what
Yeah.
makes anybody conservative, but why does hocus pocus go into the thing make somebody conservative? That doesn't, I don't think one
Well,
is,
I
it
think it's
just
just
goes
an
hand in hand with the other.
experience.
Yeah, no,
it's conservative in Catholic terms, because a person could be a communist and could still be a conservative Catholic and want to go to Latin Mass.
Well,
You could be a communist and still be a conservative. I mean, it's called a totalitarian.
They say the same thing about the Patriarch of Moscow, okay, who wants to really take over the Orthodox Church, and he's tied at the hip to Putin.
Yeah,
So
and
how,
that-
how
Is it the Patriarch of Constantinople's the head, right?
well, but he's, I mean, the laws
Moscow
of
wants
Turkey.
to take away.
Right. The laws
To
in
be fair-
Turkey don't allow the patriarch. They have all these rules now that the next patriarch, you have to be born in Turkey and you have to be educated in Turkey. Well, since they closed all the theological schools in Turkey, where are you going to find one of those?
Yeah.
And he lives in his little house, and they've taken over Saint Sophia. They've converted it back to a mosque. So
And being a nationalist-based religion, don't you have to get the approval of the national leader of the country you're in? So if you're in Turkey and Constantinople, doesn't that bishop have to be approved by? Doesn't the bishop have to be approved by the
Yeah, that's what I'm
the
saying.
Sultan?
yeah, he has to be approved by the Turkish government,
Wow.
more or less.
The Sultan.
Okay, I mean, the Pope doesn't need to be approved by the Italian government.
He can be your Pope too, Nick. Come
Yes.
back, rejoin the churches.
Well, he was. I mean,
was a
until the
time
Great
when-
Schism.
yeah.
The Great Schism. I mean,
Schism
there
could be
were-
over, buddy.
Yeah. Well, they're talking about that. You don't
mean,
want
I
to get
could-
into dogma, but they're talking about, unifying the Easter holiday to make sure they all celebrate it together. We don't have this dichotomy. But sorry, but the Pope of Rome, he wanted his independent papacy and broke off from the rest of the Eastern Orthodox Church.
That's one way to put it.
Stop right there, because we're going to get no. It was the other way around.
Why? This is
It
what we're
was
about.
This is politics.
It was a series of anathemas. They anathemized each other for about 12 years straight, until they finally said, enough, I don't want to talk. Get this
Again, I think honestly it's a lot of personal politicking. To get back to the politics between them, it's they send an envoy to go meet with the Pope, and he makes them wait for 3 days before he'll sit down to see him, and a lot of that kind of. Yes, I think we get through it.
Yeah, penis measuring. That's what they were doing.
Thank you, Danny.
No, they get over that in seminary. That is one of the things that I actually learned about Francis recently. Someone brought it up. Was he gets a lot of credit or allegations depending which side you're on of being too liberal. Mm-hmm. He made some comments here and there about let's get less. It was a closed door meeting with cardinals, and basically his instruction was, listen, like, do we have to have so many gay guys coming into seminary? Like, can we cut that out? It's like, oh, okay. I guess he wasn't like the most liberal pope we've ever seen.
No, and he didn't change any dogma.
No, I don't need.
No, he just tried to make the tent bigger, okay? And he actually did visit poor people, instead of go to fundraisers. You know what I'm saying? But
He just said,
that's
give these
foreign to
people
the
a
Pope.
break.
and he met
John
with
Paul
the.
II was
If I'm
pretty
not
good at that.
mistaken, didn't he meet with the patriarch?
Yeah.
From Constantinople.
Yeah.
Didn't he
Yeah.
meet with the
We just
Jewish
lost
guy?
the Turkish
The
vote.
head of the Jewish guy, or
Constantinople.
whatever, one of them, some big rabbi. He met with them, or a group of rabbis. And he said, "I'm sorry for whatever." I don't know what he was sorry for. But
The
he was,
accusation.
okay, whatever.
Patriarch Bartholomew and Pope Francis had a pretty open dialogue over the last several years, and they were working together to try to synchronize and communicate between the two religions. Bartholomew was front and center at the funeral. I know that, and he was given a pretty prominent spot, which kind of aggravated some people. But okay, I mean that's the protocol. That's what they did. So yeah, I mean they've been trying to, outside of communion, they're trying to kind of sync up with each other, or they were, until this happened.
And then you have Eastern Rite Catholics.
Yeah,
They're like
they look very
Orthodox,
much like Orthodox.
but they're with the Pope.
Yeah, it's the only difference,
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
one of the
okay.
few differences.
They're like Ukrainian Catholics are like that, and there's other Asian, Western Asian
Armenian.
Armenians, Maronite Catholics,
First
like in
Catholic
Lebanon.
nation, first Christian nation, Armenia.
Maronite is the Middle East. That's
Yeah.
Syria and Lebanon. Yeah.
Yeah.
My stepfather was Maronite. Catholic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Danny Thomas was.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That was one of his heroes.
And
Danny
Uncle
Thomas.
Tanous.
Yeah, Uncle Tanous. That's right. But his mother was from Syria. His father was from Lebanon, and he grew up Maronite Catholic. Yeah.
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 He always promoted himself as being Lebanese. Danny Thomas. He always.
Oh, yeah.
He always considered.
Yeah,
himself-
he was proud of him. And
Yeah.
He should have been.
Why not?
Right. Why not? Yeah. He did a lot.
I wanted
He
to
did
do a
right.
shout out to Tim Pool. Okay, I
Oh,
heard
geez.
he made mention of us on his show, and of course, his show dwarfs our show. We're just brand new, and we've got a few ticklers out there. He's got thousands. Anyway, I watched a couple of episodes of yours, Tim, and all I got to say is if you're in town anywhere near Chicago, I will give you free lunch. Come on over and visit us. You're going to meet a real liberal, not the guy you got, okay? A real liberal here.
Who's
And
that? Who's it gonna be?
It's me, okay?
Oh. Okay.
I'll give you a run for your money. What I can say about you is that you must have balled up all of this information for about 3 hours before you did your podcast, because you had an explosion of vocalism when it came out. It was just one sentence after another, after another, after another, a machine gun rap. That's a pretty good attack, okay?
What information was he talking on?
Oh, Ukraine. And I was totally in a different ball game. I'd love to do the Ukraine thing with you. My friend, who's also liberal over here, Tom, is on your side, and for a lot of it, he's the historian. I'm the humanitarian, so I'm going to come at you from a different point of view. I'm going to ask you, how would you like to be the father of that 11-year-old girl who had her left arm blown off, and her brother, who was 9, who was blinded for life with shrapnel because they tried to go to a store, but they got intercepted by a Russian missile? Now, please, give me all the reasons why that was a good thing,
Who
okay?
said it was?
Yeah,
Danny?
I think you're
Well,
misrepresenting.
yeah, I mean,
Ukraine.
yeah. Well, where's
Well,
that?
It's
that
not
is
like
the
they're
actual
Russia.
fact.
Okay, it's a
okay?
fact. Somebody got it happens in war all the time. Innocent people
That's a
get
terrible
maimed
That's
and
the
killed.
problem. There should
It-
be no war.
Of course, there shouldn't be any war, Dan. Nobody
Who
is
started the
advocating-
war?
Okay,
Russia.
Russia.
Never,
Well,
okay.
I
starts
listen to
all
Temple pretty
wars?
regularly.
The
I've never
people
heard
with
him
the
deny
most
Russia
to
started
lose
it.
start the wars.
Yeah, really. That was sarcastic, right?
You were going to say something?
I listen to Tim Pool pretty regularly. I've never heard him deny that Russia started it. I heard him bring up once or twice that we could have helped. We could have avoided it. It's not something we were obligated to do. But we could have said, yeah, Ukraine's never getting into NATO. Putin asked for that. I think it was like 2 months before he invaded, and we were like, no, we'll let him in if we ever want to. We're not going to now, but we want to leave the option open.
And that's good enough to blow up a city?
No, again, it's still Russia started it. Russia was, generally unprovoked, but according to Putin, if we had given him that, he wouldn't have done it. It's not
I think
justification;
that's-
it's just a
I think
fact.
that's a smokescreen, Will. Because
What do you think I'm saying?
well, exactly, because all he wanted was empire. He wanted to go back to the Tsars. He wanted empire. He wanted Crimea. He wanted all of Ukraine, and then he would move on to Moldova and every place else. He just wanted to build his empire. He's like another Napoleon, only not as good.
I disagree. I agree. I agree with half of what you said. Let's say 2/3 even. I think Putin. He's inherently duplicitous. Again, I hate the guy. I'm not defending Putin by any means, but I do think that he has kind of multiple public messages and private messages on what he's thinking. So I think internal in Russia, you're 100% right. He's saying we're going to be great like the Soviet Union again. He wants to be an expansionist force. He wants Russia to feel powerful. I think that internationally, he also has his what you'd call the smokescreen message. And again, I'm not saying he's right. I'm just saying he said it.
Well, look at the message that he
I
gave
think-
for reasoning to go into Ukraine. The Crimea and Donbass, okay? Russian-speaking people.
Yeah.
Not the majority of people that
No,
are
I
Russian,
think that's bullshit.
just
yeah.
a bunch of people who speak Russian. Well, you know where there is another group of Russian-speaking people that were born in another country but raised by Russian parents? Alaska.
Oh, okay.
Alaska's got a huge number of Russian-speaking people.
I thought you were going to talk about that bathhouse you go to downtown with all the Russian speakers.
Maybe that too. Maybe that too.
Yeah.
But what if
Yeah,
what,
get a couple
what if
shots of
Putin
vodka
put
with a
100
massage.
What if Putin put 150,000 Marines on the western shore of the Bering Strait? What would you do then? Okay, would you put another 150,000 U.S. Marines on the eastern shore?
No, we just start blowing them up without it.
Yeah,
saying a
we
word.
just use drones.
But
We
But
use
that's
buttons,
America.
right?
Listen,
Nobody uses troops.
I'm
anymore.
I don't
surprised,
default Ukraine
Pu-
for fighting back. I
Putin
just-
didn't make a deal with Poland to split up the Ukraine, because a lot of the Ukraine used to be Poland before Stalin pulled the Polish shift. He shifted Poland 150 miles to the west after the Second World War.
I don't think
Why?
Poland wants much to do with.
I don't know
with
why,
this.
just because he
I'm not.
could.
I'm not smart enough to figure out what's going to happen or how Ukraine should end up. I just don't see how the Ukrainians can win. I mean, eventually, it's either the Russian people are going to get tired of their. It's going to be their, as they say, their Vietnam, or they're going to lose.
Wait,
They're
wait,
just gonna
another.
lose.
Or NATO comes in and fights for them.
They're,
Yeah,
they're
and I
Vietnam. You
I
mean
don't
like
see
they're
that happening.
Afghanistan?
I'm sorry.
They're Vietnam like they're Afghanistan?
Yeah.
Another
Yeah.
one? I mean, th-
Graveyard of Empires.
nobody wins in a war like this. They just
True.
carve it up the way that it'll work. And that's what's going to happen.
Well, and you would think that time had come. They've been trying to broker something. I heard there's a 3-day ceasefire. We'll see what happens with that. But you figured at this point everybody would have been worn out enough that they would come to some kind of carve up. It just seems like Nobody wants to
But,
be
yeah,
the
and-
first to
Well,
bend a knee or to capitulate and
Let
say,
me ask
okay.
the lawyers something. You guys believe
Why
in
you got to ask the
contracts.
lawyers?
Because you guys are contract people, right? You know negotiations by contract,
Sure.
written agreement. Wasn't there a contract by Reagan when they dropped the Soviet Union? Wasn't there a contract that said, drop your wall, we'll release those countries, the ones that have nuclear arms, we will absorb or have them disarm. And one of the biggest armaments of nuclear weapons was in the Ukraine. If
Yeah.
we signed an agreement that protected their sovereignty, we did, and Russia
Non-binding, no apparent or actual authority.
did.
Well, you know,
Well, no treaty
Show
does.
me the Senate approval.
No treaty has. You know.
Show me the Senate, 2/3 of the Senate approving it, and I'd say we're
Oh
obligated.
my God! No, I mean,
And Ukraine
when,
knew it wasn't
when
a
the
treaty.
president of the United States makes a foreign agreement, he's speaking for the United States. And the president's
Constitution trumps the president. Says that in order to enter into a treaty with a foreign government, needs to have it ratified by 2/3 of the Senate.
So
That's
you're
written
saying,
plain as day. It's
so you're
published all
saying
over
that
the
agreement
Ukrainians
that,
do.
that guaranteed the sovereignty of Ukraine if they gave up their nuclear weapons was not ratified? Is that what you're
I
saying?
believe the Senate ratified that by 2/3 majority.
So there
now.
was no such treaty?
It
So
could've
they
been
should
signed,
have
it
not
would've been a
given up
treaty.
their nuclears? If they had their weapons, do you think Russia would have invaded?
Probably not. Putin,
Okay.
Putin might. Listen, I
So-
put nothing past Putin.
so
He's a bit crazy, but I
Mad
doubt-
is
I
a
doubt
good
it.
thing then. Mutually assured destruction is actually the way to go, I guess.
Well, it's
right?
better than unilaterally assured destruction because then you're just losing.
If we start put, okay.
Right, what is it?
So
Question in
it
chat.
came from John. Big thank you to John for tuning in regularly and asking questions. What part should religion play in the modern world? Is the goal to gain as many followers as possible? Is the goal to promote the traditions of the past? And lastly, is the goal to make a better society for all?
I think
Ethical question.
I think most religions, in theory, are there to make people better and therefore make the society better. I think that's always the overall goal of a religion. Yes, you follow a certain dogma, but I think those dogmas are there to make you a better person, and it makes you a better person. It makes the society a better society.
but has it always been that way?
Of course not.
Of
No,
course,
no, no.
This is
I
the
mean,
modern era,
right,
right?
right.
One-
And,
one-
and it should be because you've got young people leaving the church, and they want to get these young people back into the church. What do you do?
You're getting a lot more younger people back involved in the church. Charlie Kirk is a prime example of a young guy who has a young following, and a lot of them are very, very Christian, very religious based, whether they're Jewish, Christian. I don't see a lot of Muslims following him, but in and of itself, I think young people are getting more involved in religions. Number one, and number two, I still think that it's not always practiced that way, but I think in theory that's what the religion is supposed to do. It's supposed to make you a better person by your relationship with whatever God you believe in.
I agree with the
socially-
first half of that.
You do or you don't?
I agree with only the first half.
Which
I
part?
don't think that it's supposed to make you a better person in communion with God. Making the world a better place might be a nice coincidence from time to time.
I think
Certain
it's just-
happy happenstance.
I
but
think it's a natural
It's
progression.
kind of dogma adjacent.
yeah, no, it's more of a consequence.
Part of
than
the
a
social
goal.
purpose of religion is keeping people in the line.
Yeah.
Because, don't worry about this world, you'll be all right in the next one.
So you don't need law.
And social elites take advantage of religion to keep people in line.
Well, no, man, because if you're not all right
That's
in
what
this
Karl
world,
Marx
you're not
said.
going to get to the good next world.
You know.
Okay? You're not going to get to the good next world if you're not good in this world.
Right. I mean, it
Alright.
keeps people from murdering the people that are putting them down because they're afraid they'll go to hell. You know.
Except some religions will say at the last moment, if you repent, you'll be okay. And you
Yeah.
don't even, some
So
of
you're
those
good at the
religions,
contrition.
you don't even need to have a priest or a minister there.
Hey, a
Just
lot
say,
of religions. say-
God, I repent. I'm going to die. I don't want to be in hell.
A lot of religions have
Please.
said, hey, if you kill the right person, it's actually not. It's not something you need to repent for. It's a good
Well, it
thing.
depends
But
on
I
who.
want to
Yeah, exactly. Depending on who.
Yeah.
I want to get back to what you said about like almost like a natural consequence of religion, it doesn't have a benefit on the rest of society. I think that if you treat people the way my religion teaches, that does become a better place to live.
I think it will. He asked what's the point or what's the role. I think it was. I don't think that's the point of religion. This world it's ephemeral. It's fleeting. We're only here for a little bit of time. It's almost like I don't love this analogy, but it's almost like a testing ground. But this world will always be imperfect. It'll always be fallen. The poor will always be with us, Jesus said. We're not going to perfect this world, just by being better people ourselves. There's a fallenness, there's an evil in the world, and we have to contend with that constantly. I think that religion helps us contend with that, but I don't think that's the point. I think that salvation, spiritual enlightenment, happen to create a better world, but really, who cares about this world? It is the afterlife that we're striving for.
Well, to get back to the political part of it,
Yeah.
okay, there's two issues. Number one, with this particular pope, the second thing that conservative Catholics didn't like is that he challenged Donald Trump on the separation of families. Okay, he said that the way that he was controlling the border in the South was not humanistic. Okay, he didn't say it that way, but he said it in those terms. Okay, he took a stand, and actually Trump said something about him. Okay, after that, like Trump would hesitate, right? Anyway, the Trump followers did not appreciate that. The Catholic Trump followers then marked that up as number 2 reason to not like this pope. So that was the two things that I found on my Facebook groups. I'm in the Sicilian group. I'm Sicilian, not Italian. Get that straight. Yeah. I'm in the
You're
Italian
Greek.
group.
You're Greek.
You might be a Berber.
Yeah, well, I am. My DNA says I'm part Berber, I'm part Greek. A lot of Italian. 1% Irish. How the fuck did you guys get
Hey.
We get
Hey.
everywhere. Go to Mars, you'll find an Irishman up there.
Oh, we.
1% European Jew, 13% Levant Semitic, which could be indistinguishable between Jew and Arab.
Where's this going?
I got the answer.
He's just having
Well,
fun.
Like Irishmen in the Spanish Army. There were a lot of Irishmen in the Spanish
No,
Army.
I think it's part of it might be part of the 3%
Well-
Scandinavian. Okay, it could have been because where my grandparents came from was Alta Villa Militia. That's where the Normans landed when they invaded Sicily.
Let's get back to your comment about the Pope having some alienation with Trump because supposedly Trump separated families. How? How did he do that?
How did he separate
but before Trump got into office, there's a reported almost
I know, but what
400,000 children that are unaccounted for.
I know there's
Okay.
the whataboutisms about Obama doing.
Well,
it
it's not
before him.
whataboutism. It's about
know-
what you hear from one administration to the next, and there's a progression.
It was going on in real time. I was watching it on TV. It wasn't some Fig Newton of my hallucination.
What
Yeah,
was
but he was
going on?
watching CNN, so who
What
knows?
was going on?
Oh,
The children in cages that they really
Yeah,
weren't. Not,
yeah.
they've already disproved that. That wasn't the
okay,
Trump
that
era.
didn't happen, right?
No, it did happen. It happened under the Obama administration, but
It started with Clinton with the Flores settlement because Clinton's policy was, well, just throw the children in prison with the parents. And they're like, no, you have to separate
It was
them.
wrong no matter who did it.
What do you
Okay.
propose they do? So you can't keep them together. You can't separate them. So why, you just arrest the parents and release the kids into the country alone, or just everyone gets
Why
to
don't you
go
do
through?
what you did to the 15 million Italians that came out without papers? They didn't send
Oh,
them back.
wops.
They didn't send them, put them apart. They put them in camps, and then they taught them, well, not camps, they put them in neighborhoods. And they had people like, what's that, Hull House?
Oh,
social
Yeah,
worker,
that was
Jane
the
Addams,
immigration process at the
taking-
time.
Processing
Yes.
them.
Does our nation
Yes.
not have the right to change its laws? They changed the law in between Ellis
But they
Island
didn't
and
make it to right.
2017.
They made it to worse. Okay, I mean, what are we? We're Americans. We're invaders. We're a nation of foreign invaders. That's what we are. Okay, is it we got here first, so you can't invade anymore? What the hell? I mean, what kind of logic is that?
What kind of
No, it's not
invaded
like-
people ever said, well, we invaded someone else in the past, so I guess we just, come on in, Vikings, just take over our island.
I guess
No, you
Sicilians
push
have a
back.
different point of view. We've been invaded so many times, and we've made a lot of good out of it. Great food, great architecture, great art, great diversity. Look at my DNA.
You guys are like Windsox. You're just like go whatever the flow. Whoever comes in, like, yeah, okay, you
And
can
you
run
know
the
what?
country. We're going to do our own thing
And
anyways.
you know what? 1,000 years ago, Palermo was the #1 city in the world as far as wealth and vibrancy and whatever. So there's nothing wrong in that. There's nothing wrong in
But it's
using
not
the
that way
strengths.
now, Danny.
Look at what I did.
It's not that way now.
Look what you
Things
and I
change.
What was
did.
that Italian city
Things
that was like
change.
completely overrun? There was like 1.5 to 2 immigrants from Africa per. I think it was a Sicilian city. I know it's an island too. It was a town on an
Lampedusa?
island. I think it was Lampedusa. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Berbers are coming over. And
Well,
streams.
can you
The
tell me that
Libyans.
there's not potentially problems given the specific facts?
Oh
of
yeah,
that?
they're yelling
Okay.
about it there too. They've got a conservative prime minister. She's a woman who I think is related to Mussolini. as a matter of
Georgia
fact.
Maloney.
I think that's her name.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's this right-wing swing isn't just here; it's worldwide.
Why?
Okay,
Why is that, Danny?
because the pendulum always does that. Look at history.
Okay.
The pendulum always does that. This is the 60s. This is the apex for where the 60s were during its apex. The swing has run all the way to the right. Have we reached the end yet? I don't know. The last time we went all the way to the right, it was World War I. And then there was World War II. Okay,
Oh,
so
World War II. You
well,
also had
well.
communist nations rising up all over.
but
Though
they
you
were
think communists are right wing now?
authoritarians.
Yes.
They were right wing.
No, they were left wing authoritarians.
No, right wing leading a
Absolutely.
left wing kind of a government.
Uh-huh.
No.
You're getting them confused.
No, you're just-
Authoritarianism
you're
has
complaining
nothing to do
right-wing.
with economics. Communism
What are you
has to do
talking
with
about?
economics. Authoritarian
No,
has
so-
to do with politics.
Communism is a totalitarian system. The Communist Manifesto talks
Because
extensively
they
about the power
use
of religion.
authoritarianism. Okay, that's
Yes.
why.
Yes.
What do you think left and right are inherently economic terms? It goes back to the
Well,
French
pre-
Revolution. What are you
well,
talking
no,
about?
purely economic terms, it would be socialism. Okay, that's pure economics. Communism is not an economic
Well, no,
system.
well-
Communism is a political economic system.
Socialism's also a political system.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, it is.
The library isn't a political.
Who runs the library, Dan?
it's
the
socialism.
government. Who hires the employees at the library?
Who
the
pays for
mayor.
it? Did you make a contract with the library to provide you books?
No, I paid taxes for it.
That's socialism. You had no choice.
Right. Who's collecting my taxes and giving them to the library? The government.
You had no
What does
choice.
political mean? It's the things we all do together.
It's just administration.
Yeah.
The government paying for socialistic and, as he said, or social contracts for fire and police and
Yes.
and libraries, everything. That's just administration.
Right.
That
It's
has nothing to
administered
do with
through
politics.
the government. Of course, it has to do with politics. Politics comes from the Greek, mean the things that we do together.
When you ask a PhD economics professor to give you a definition of the American economic system, they're going to tell you it's like this. We are a free market, capitalist economy with elements of socialistic institutions like Social Security, the military, most local governments, libraries,
Yeah, sure.
first offenders, all that
It just
stuff.
sounds like you guys are agreeing with me.
Well, in some respects. Do we have any questions? Anybody out there got any comments? Come on, wake up.
No,
Slap, slap,
you
slap.
guys went off the rails.
We
got
always
it.
do.
We got
Yeah,
it.
that's a coffee house for you.
Let's talk about film editing.
Yeah.
All right. I can speak to that.
Tell
All
us
right.
what you do. This is a prime guest here.
My name's
We've
Marty.
gotten to him.
Marty Bernstein. My whole career was as a film editor for television commercials, documentaries, a little bit of reality TV, and whatever else could pay the bills. And I worked for some of the biggest advertising agencies in Chicago and the country, and the best directors. And a lot of my television commercial work was for, really A1 accounts like McDonald's and Disney and Hallmark. Did the Hallmark Hall of Fame commercials that would bring tears to your eyes. And I worked on a few feature films, but
Was that his director?
no, as an editor, film editor. And now I still teach it at Columbia College. That was my alma mater. I just teach 2 small courses now, 5 weeks, 3 hours, 1 credit, where I teach them motifs of how to stitch a story together beyond the dialogue, beyond the plot, using those motifs like montage and music and color and that kind of thing. And I use 2 episodic TV shows that are no longer on but people love, Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. And I teach them the motifs that we use in order to give life to the story, that go beyond the story, that really underpin the story.
So I haven't seen Better Call Saul. It would be like an example from Breaking Bad of a motif that kind of pulls together the
The
story.
montages where they're cooking meth, the music, they would use music from blues and jazz and rock and narco corrido and you name it, and these music would fit into the story and drive the story. What these motifs do, they drive the story forward. They help connect. They start in the middle of the story in media res. They do flashbacks, flash forwards, and all these things help give life to the story instead of just a linear story.
So how much reality TV gets edited into an Unreal TV?
I'd say a lot of it, but the one that I worked on was all real.
I mean, we understand like the footage is real, but when you as an editor edit it now, how can you or do you control the story by editing when we're talking about a reality-based program?
Okay, yes, you do control the story, but you've got to make it interesting. You've got to engage the audience. If you're just trying to make a complete documentary, maybe people are going to turn it off. We did a show called Great Lake Warriors for the History Channel. We spent 3 years getting it to market, going all over the Great Lakes in the worst conditions, but those conditions are what sold the story to History Channel, the series. And we had eight episodes that summer, and it was really well received. The problem is when they started producing it through the History Channel and the production company, they had to use our footage because they ran into the mildest winter in 20 years. Nothing happened, so people are like, oh, look at the cute little tugboats, click. And if you don't get the eyeballs, you're not going to get the second season. They wanted to be great, what do you call it, Ice Road Truckers meets Deadliest Catch,
So how'd you market it?
They marketed it by what show it followed. That's how you market a new show, what show it follows, right? But if you're following a great show and you don't have the excitement and you don't have the tension that's built up in that, people aren't going to keep going, and then you're done.
Great question in chat. Mr. Bernstein, does your experience allow you to recognize or use propaganda, and how much spin is too much?
Propaganda.
I would add to that. How easy is it to make a false flag video?
My job as an editor is to follow the script and find the story in the footage, whether it's documentary, whether it's a scripted television show, whether it's a reality TV show. Find the story in the footage and bring it to life, okay? Now, if I am told we want to send this message, in this dogma and this, what do you call it, propaganda, well, then, who am I, Leni Riefenstahl? I've got to make the film that Hitler wants? No. I do have some morals, right? So I don't have to go according to that. Yes, it's very easy to do that.
So
It
is
depends
easy
on
to
who you're.
do it.
So
Of course
have
it
you
is.
ever come in conflict with
course it's
whoever the producer is or the person that's in charge of whatever production you're involved with?
No,
Have you
be-
ever had that where you as a
Very
film
little.
editor are not on the same page?
Very
with-
little. Very little. I used to work for the advertising agencies or the production company or even the director. And they understood my ability to craft a story. And so they gave me free rein. They said, you've got the first cut. You put it together the way you see it according to the script, according to what our message is, according to how we want to market this and sell it, right? And then we'll come in and we'll make revisions. But usually they liked what I did.
So does the producer, director, ad agency start out with the premise and you mold it from there?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. They give me it's great. You know, they come up with an idea, and you read you bid on this, and you're awarded the job, and you know you think, this is not going to work, you know. But then a director takes it and casts it, and gets these wonderful performances, and then you get the footage, and it comes to life. It's like, wow, I
kinda
never
like-
thought this would work. This is going to work.
It's kind of like being a trial lawyer. You have your theory of your case, and then in the middle of it, something happens, and now you're on a completely different path.
Exactly
And
right.
you're trying to paint a new picture.
It was so much fun, you know, and it's not like that anymore. They're not storytellers in TV commercials. You want the storytellers, you go to episodic TV. That's where all the storytellers are now. But we did that in commercials for a long time, and it was great. It was the golden era, and that's when I worked in it.
I'm disappointed in because we always used to say that the Super Bowl was forget the game, watch the commercials.
Right.
And in the last few years, the commercials
awful.
have been like this.
Well, I
what?
had
You're
like
paying how much for this?
I
This
had
is
4 or
terrible. Right,
5
terrible.
commercials on the Super Bowl, and some of them are in the permanent collection of the art and technique of the television commercial in MoMA in New
What's
York.
your most famous Super Bowl commercial?
the,
that we would know.
the one that no, not what I did.
Oh, I thought you said you did.
I did a half dozen, but
Which
I-
one's
I-
your
4 of
most
them.
famous? To you.
It might have been the dinosaur that comes to life and rampages through, the museum with the McDonald's fries, and then the guard says, "Sit up," and play dead. Okay, but there was one with Larry Bird and Michael Jordan, with the two guys trying to get.
Playing horse.
Yeah, playing horse, but the two guys are trying to get tickets to the Super Bowl, and they go through the whole season. It started with one commercial. These guys, people loved them. They were on national TV. They were on Letterman. They took their station wagon with the football, luggage rack on top, driving around at the Houston game and things. I mean, these guys were great, and they got all the way to the Super Bowl, and they don't have tickets, right? And so, it starts out, 2 on the 50, please. And the woman in the counter, she's laughing like crazy. She's behind the ticket counter. She's laughing. 30, end zone, anything? She's still laughing. They walk away. Hey, nice going, Mr. Whatever. And so let's just eat our Big Macs and sit down. And all of a sudden, Bird and Jordan come over. And, hey, I hear you guys need tickets, Well, we're in the middle of something here. And there's the aura of heaven, and the angels singing, ah! And now they got tickets for the game, and they got to find it. And so they go through this underground, and they come up, and they open this trap door, and they're right in the middle of the marching band. Oh, Tommy Tuba, Officer Orchestra, and they go through that. And but
How long was this
the game
commercial?
it was 90 seconds. 90 seconds. So he says, Larry, Michael Jordan says, okay, over the end zone, off Leslie Visser's head, because she was the announcer, right? Nothing but net, right? And so when she's doing an interview later on, you hear this, she's going, San Francisco has got to put pressure on, and all of a sudden, bing, the basketball bounces off her head, and nothing but net. That was the commercial. It only played once. You can find it online now, but it only played once.
Wow.
So anyway,
Great
that was
story.
my favorite.
Great story.
What do you think marketers feel motivates people more, fear or sex? And if they wanted you to come up with an advertisement that would be including or grabbing the fear part of people, that's what I saw happening during the inflationary part. Okay, get your stuff now because tomorrow it's going to be twice as much money. You know who did that more than anybody? That Noble Gold. Okay, they sell gold bars.
Oh yes,
And
yes,
they
yes.
say, your money's worthless tomorrow. Gold
Right.
will always have its
Well, that's
value.
where the flight is right
Yeah.
now. It's the gold.
So you would get fear as a motivating factor for these. Do you then edit around that, or do you
If
make sure it's
that's-
focused to
If
fear?
that's the message, then that's what you want to play up. Because it's not fear of sex, right? You said
Right.
fear
Well,
or
I
sex,
would
not
say
fear
no.
of sex. No.
Fear or
I know,
sex
I know.
are the two things.
No,
yeah.
sorry. But no, if that's your message, that's what you've got to play up. You've got to concentrate on that. That's where you're going to sell, whatever you're selling.
What sells the best?
I think sex sells the best.
Okay.
I mean, anybody else?
What happens when you see those homosexual sex scenes on cable TV? You know,
What?
for different kinds of drugs that will repel
Oh,
HIV,
okay.
that
Okay.
kind of
Right,
stuff.
right.
Oh,
See,
jeez.
two
Dan.
guys.
I'm wondering what kind of channels you're watching where they're just showing you that and then trying to sell
I'm
you gold
eclectic.
afterwards.
I'm eclectic. Okay. I mean,
Quick,
I wanna
before you
see-
die of AIDS, get gold.
Actually, I hear there's an ad agency out there that'll underwrite the cost of your commercial production. But their whole point is you see a lot of mixed race marriages
Yes.
in their commercials.
Yeah.
Like you see all these commercials now, and a lot of them are mixed race families.
Right.
And there's a whole production company, like I said, that underwrites all of that. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not, but
Is
I
that
see a
all of
lot of
them?
that. And a lot of it.
All of the production companies? you
No.
mean?
There's a particular company that underwrites it. and
It's not
then- and-
drug.
and-
I'm
No.
saying I see it all the time. Like every
I see
Yeah,
it
commercial
on
well,
I
it-
see.
CW all the time. Okay, well,
Not
my-
like I'm tracking.
And when you watch CW with your teenage grandkids, okay, you're gonna see this. The formula is there has to be an interracial
Component?
situation. Okay, there has to be an age situation. You know, there's an age component, whether the woman is older or the man is much older. That has to be part of it. There has to be a homosexual relationship going on someplace. There has to be the implication of one going on someplace. Those are the formulas you have to have. If you don't think that that's true, try watching one of those CW series. Okay, it's this series that goes on.
Well,
So we
I
got
was
our
talking.
answer, CW.
I was talking with an Englishman, and I said to him, I says, you know, every contemporary English show now, say detective story, you always have a black person, a black Englishman,
Yep.
and you'll have a South Asian Englishman, like from India or Pakistan. I says, is it really like that, or is that just something they're doing for TV? He said, oh, it's like that.
For the
But they
record,
are doing it for TV.
British detective shows now are the absolute worst. I tried watching that Luther. And you know, like
Yeah.
an American TV show, like they're trying to find out like who did it, and then they send in the SWAT team. Luther, he figures out like 10 minutes in, but then like the guy like pulls a knife or like a gun on him and then gets away. And then he's like, well, I don't have a gun because I'm a British cop, so I guess I'll just run after this guy for 40 minutes. It's the most boring show. I hate it.
I hate chases.
I
in
watch those
movies.
Swedish detective shows. They're unbelievable.
There's
See them?
Was that Under the Lake with
Yes. I
Yes.
saw that. That was,
Uh,
that was great.
what's her name from?
You might go for
Yeah,
a little bit
yeah.
longer. You guys
Um,
want to quit? You
yeah.
want to go a little longer?
It's up to you guys.
I'm in for another 5 times.
yeah.
As long as we're talking.
There's
Yeah.
a on Netflix. There's a Turkish
Yes.
detective show about a
Yes.
woman that investigates crimes against women
Yes.
from Turkey.
I saw that.
They allow that.
They also have a Turkish show that has something to do with the supernaturalness of a prophet that's supposed to come out. It's out there. It's borderline sci-fi fantasy, and I never expected that from Turks. Okay, I mean, you know, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's going out there that's pretty strange. You know, pretty different. I thought Stranger Things was different. You know, but
Never saw it.
but
Never saw it. Did you see Stranger Things?
it
My
made us-
girlfriend's a huge fan. I've watched like the first season. It's okay. I'm actually a D&D nerd, so I just sit there. I'm like, that's actually how the rules would work in AD&D, but all right. Why would he be rolling damage if you cast Fireball? Why not? Whatever.
I have no idea what you just said, but that's okay.
And it's like the framing of the show, like all the monsters they run into and stuff are like D&D like monsters or whatever. But
Dungeons and Dragons is
oh
what
yeah,
I'm
sorry,
saying.
Dungeons and Dragons.
No,
sorry.
that
thought
one,
you'd
that,
seen
that part I got, but I've never.
Like I just actually know the rules. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
I saw a terrible movie the other day. Went to the pictures. You know, Carol and I go to the picture show. That new accountant movie, part 2.
I never saw part 1.
Oh,
Part
part
one
one's pretty
was-
good.
Circling
was
back
good.
to the original topic, how about Conclave?
Oh, that was
Oh,
good.
Jesus.
Well,
about
it was
that?
a well done movie.
Very. Now,
Refuse to
what
watch
if?
on principle.
What if the new
It was,
pope?
the punchline was.
What if the new pope is the ending of Conclave, and we don't know?
Yeah, you don't give away the punchline, but as a production, it was very well done. The actors were very good, but
Yeah,
you know
we-
the
Of
Of course, you
storyline
never did
just.
Hollywood
I like
together to
Stanley
spit on the
Tucci.
Catholics. They're
I
happy
can.
to join.
He's one of those guys. He could read the dictionary. You'd watch.
Yeah,
him,
he'd
right?
be interesting.
Have you
yeah.
seen, have you seen Tucci's show on in Italy, the
CNN.
cooking?
About the cooking and
Traveling,
everything. I
yeah.
haven't. I
It's
haven't seen.
outstanding.
Great. It's fantastic.
It's outstanding.
Yeah.
You'll eat all that food. You'll want to go to every city and every region of Italy. It's like 12 different regions.
Isn't
Everything's
Ralph
got
Fiennes
different
in
food.
Conclave too?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one thing that almost got me to watch it. Like Ralph Fiennes, he's a great actor.
My
but-
Yeah,
son,
he's
my
good.
son is itching to go to this new movie about our U.S. military. I can't think of it, but the reviews are very good. But I've also heard that some veterans have gone to see this movie, and it's so realistic. They walked
Warfare,
out-
it's called.
Warfare.
Yeah.
They said.
Oh, I haven't
And
heard
they,
of this
and, they,
one.
and they he said that some of these guys are walking out. They can't take it.
You know, a new
It's just-
TV
it's just
series
way
like
too-
that is the new one based off of ER with the same actor that was in ER, and it's called The Pit, and
Oh, I saw
and
the
and The
advertisement.
Pit,
Yeah.
PITT, and it's about an emergency room. And the way it's structured, it was great editorially. Is it starts at like 7 o'clock in the morning, in the ER, and it goes through the whole day, and every hour
It's
is
like
an episode.
24,
It's
but
like
a day in the
24,
ER, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
I've
this
had
movie
some nurses
Warfare.
tell me it was
It
good.
is.
Yeah.
It is brilliant.
This
I mean,
movie Warfare is supposed to be in real
Yeah,
time too. So
It's crazy. I watched
it-
two
plus we
warfare
really-
movies last night as I'm working. And, I got through The Covenant with Jake Gyllenhaal, which was good.
Oh, that's a Guy Ritchie movie.
That's Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. And then after that, I finally
Tip
watched
top, Tommy.
American Sniper. I tried to watch it. I had to like stop. I had to go do something like halfway through every time. So let me finish this.
That's well
So
done.
yeah, crazy. Yeah.
Well done. My wife
You know,
loves
in the
that
old
movie.
days, they called an editor a cutter.
Yeah.
I've seen interviews with John Ford. And those old guys, they never said the film. They said the picture. We're making a picture.
So,
And
so
women
we're
were
talking
the
about-
cutters.
So we're talking about popes and we're talking about movies. So give us some more of our famous movies
a good
involving
Pope
religion.
movie is The Agony and Ecstasy,
Okay.
where
True
Charlton
Confession?
Heston plays Michelangelo, and the guy who was
Anthony Quinn.
no English. I'm getting
Okay. You're getting old. You can't.
Hey,
remember.
can I tell my Pope comes to Chicago joke?
I guess.
Okay. So the Pope comes to Chicago, gets off the plane at O'Hare, gets in the limo. You start taking off down the expressway, and he says, "Driver, would you pull over?" He says, "Of course, Your Holiness." He pulls over. He says, "What is it, Your Holiness?" He says, "Would you mind if I drove the car?" "Oh, I can't let you do that, Your Holiness." He says, "Oh, come on. Before I became Pope, I drove all over. I love driving. I'm going to die, and I'm never going to be able to drive again. They won't let me drive, not even the Pope mobile." "Oh, I understand, Your Holiness." Okay, he gets out, he gets the back, Pope gets the front, takes off down the Kennedy. They're going 70, 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. Gets pulled over by a Chicago cop. He goes up, takes one look, gets back, gets on the radio with the dispatcher. He says, "We got a VIP here. I just pulled over." He says, "Yeah, who is it? The mayor?" "Oh, bigger than the mayor." "Governor?" "Bigger than the governor." "Well, can't be the president." "Bigger than the president." "Who could be bigger than the president?" "I don't know, but he's got the Pope for a chauffeur."
I heard the same joke, but it's like Stalin or Putin is driving, and like they just put out an edict like enforce the traffic law 100%. It's like, yeah, all right, I'll take my chances on this one.
Rex Harrison. Rex Harrison
Harrison.
plays Julius II, the warrior Pope.
Passion of the Christ.
No, The
Have you
Agony
ever
and
seen that?
Ecstasy. It's about
No,
Michelangelo.
I know
painting
I know the movie. I'm throwing
Oh,
out
I
another
thought-
movie out there.
Oh,
Yeah, I watched Passion of the Christ once. I don't know if I could really watch it again.
that's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's his name's movie, right?
Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson,
Gibson.
right?
I like the way the Italians were, the Romans were speaking Latin with an Italian accent.
With
You
Italian.
know.
Did anybody see these Scorsese movies that have been put out by Fox they have a lot of religious overtones about the same?
Silence.
There's like 4 or 5 of them that he's produced.
That's his baby.
Yes.
That's what he wanted to do. I mean, he'd make movies for the popular audience, but these were his. This is what he really wanted to do. Was these movies about the Passion of Christ? Yeah.
There's another series, The Chosen, on I believe it's Netflix that girl in my office watches pretty religiously, and she really enjoys it. It's a very humanistic approach to who Christ was. He's a very kind of a normal, everyday, guy with a sense of humor and whatnot. Another movie that I remember seeing was a movie called Risen.
That was good.
I enjoyed that. I mean, theologically, I don't know how accurate it was, but it was about, right after the crucifixion of Christ, and Pilate he says, listen, you got to go find me the body. He tells his general, you got to go find me the body. And so he's out there looking for the body, and you've got the apostles, and they're sitting in this room, and you kind of have this vision of what the apostles were doing at that time and whatnot. And these guys are sitting in the room going, what the hell just happened? What's going on? I mean, did we really see what we saw? Is this really happening? And it's just a kind of a well done story.
I think
That was a good movie.
Gibson's putting out a sequel to Passion of the Christ. I think that's supposed to focus on the resurrection.
Wow,
I think it's supposed to come out later this year.
interesting.
What impressed me about the Risen in the battle scene in the beginning, they actually showed the Romans throwing their javelins. You never see the Romans throw their javelins, and that was the first thing.
The
they
historian in you comes out.
That's the first thing. Like in Gladiator, that big battle at the beginning, when
Right.
are the Romans going to throw their javelins?
They didn't need to.
Then all the Germans put up their, and then the
Wooden shields.
the shield and then the javelin pins, and they got to throw the shield down.
Yeah, I just hate when they show late Roman warfare and they're fighting in a phalanx instead of a maniple. I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I used to like watching the Steve Reeves movies, when he was playing Hercules.
Oh yeah, Hercules.
Yeah,
The
yeah, that's right.
Corinthians are coming.
The lips never matched. The lips never matched the dialogue.
All right.
All right, folks. Thanks for joining us. If you joined us, if you didn't join us, boo-hoo on you.
You're not here next week.
Right? What's next week? The
I'm
sixth?
not here.
No, I'm here.
He's here next
He
week.
is.
It's the week after he's
The
out.
week
Yeah,
after.
Tom.
Okay.
Tom's not here, so we're gonna have a sub for him.
Going to San Diego.
A quick question for Nick, just came in last second here. It says, you think the devil heard the drums of hell?
That's an old Grateful Dead story I told to somebody over Easter, and he's been laughing about it ever since. Danny, Danny and I were working a Dead show at Rosemont, and we get a call on the radio that there is a naked man that is defecated all over himself running through the halls. And we trapped him at the West Gate, and everybody's standing around. The guy's pinned in the corner of the West Gate, and everybody's standing there. Paramedics are there, the cops are there, and they're going like, I ain't touching this guy. So Danny goes, give me the sheet. So Danny grabs the sheet. He gives the other side of the sheet off the gurney to me. So he's got one end of it. I got the other end of it.
Like a
We-
cannoli.
We ran towards the guy. He ran into the sheet. We mummified him in the sheet, dropped him on the gurney. We're starting to roll him out, and the guy's starting to freak out. And like all the Grateful Dead heads are playing their
He's
bongo
like this,
drums,
right?
and the guy goes, "I hear drums. I hear drums." And I couldn't resist. I said, "Those are the drums of hell calling you." No, I can't go to hell. Those are the drums of hell. We're taking you there. No. The guy is just, and I'm sorry I took advantage of a guy that was all lit up on acid, but it was fun.
Acid is one of the weirdest drugs ever created by God or man or whoever created it. Okay, it's just, it makes you do things. Doesn't make you do things. It allows you to do things that you would never think of before because you were never in that reality before.
Who's the
okay?
guy we knew that went to Dunning? He said he went to Dunning with a bullhorn and was standing around the corner and go, people of the
Dude,
earth.
that was me.
Do not be afraid.
I had a bullhorn. I was loaded in STP and went over to Dunning. I stood by the fence. I took the bullhorn out and went, people of the earth, we will not harm you. Do not be alarmed. Right?
You hear the Norm Macdonald's acid joke?
Thanks for watching, Christian.
What?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Is I heard there's this drug acid, and you knew it, and then a year later, 5 years later, 10 years later, you get another hit. You get what they call an acid flashback. You get
Flashback.
high again. Like, I took acid, spent 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Nothing.
Just more lies from the big acid companies.
Yes, more lies. That acid flashback,
Who's
not
that?
a real thing.
Who's got a topic? Who's our topic next week? Is that
I
you?
was thinking we talk about the Ukraine war, Israel war, and just kind of U.S. involvement internationally.
Sure.
Yeah.
We covered Ukraine a bit today. Maybe we see if something else pops up in the news. We
Well,
change track.
I would advise everybody here to go look at Tim Pool's Ukrainian piece,
will.
and then we can critique that.
He's been
Tim,
talking
if you're
about
ever
it for
around
years.
here, I want to bring you on the show. If I'm ever in the hillbilly land where you live, I'll come and see you. Okay? Doesn't he live in West Virginia?
Yeah, West
Yeah,
Virginia.
West Virginia.
It's
Okay.
Hill William to you, sir.
Hill William to me. Yes, that's true.
All
Of
right.
course, my go ahead.
I just want to say thanks to Danny and Nick and Will and Tom and Brendan, our engineer, for having me aboard. It was really a lot of fun.
Great.
Well, thanks to you, we
Yeah, it
learned
was
a lot.
insightful.
Okay, and it was a very interesting night. So, to all of you out there, Nick and I have something to say. Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.